I broke into wrestling in the mid-'80s when everybody did drugs. So the fact that I was able to get away without ever doing a drug and rarely drinking was something of a miracle. But it's pretty cool, right? And if I had gotten mixed up in that stuff, I don't think I'd be in a position to be talking to all of you because I would have gotten tripped up along the way, lost my priorities and all that.
Which a lot of people have.
Yeah, a lot of good
Did
people
you see
have.
that happen a lot?
Oh, so often. You know, I mean, I'm not picking on the road dog because he's been very open about his journey and his ups and downs, but he was so darn talented. Should have, he reached that peak, but he was only there for a short time. And one of the things Road Dogg did not do was he never adjusted gears so that he became so comfortable doing the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that what I call the winds of change kind of came along and swept him away. And that while I was frustrated for a while that everyone seemed to be getting over with just catchphrases and not substance, after a while people wanted more than just the catchphrases, and a lot of people didn't know how to do anything more than just the catchphrases. So one of the secrets to this business is learning how to change things up just enough before the crowd realizes you need to change things up. So a perfect example would be Chris Jericho. Right? You look at all the different incarnations of Jericho. Not every one of them has worked, but he's one step ahead of the game, and that's the difference between being a shooting star and somebody who people will be talking about. An exception to that rule would be Goldberg. You know, Goldberg was a shooting star, but he was really brilliant and in what he did. But that would be the exception to the rule, and I'm not picking on anybody, but none of you look quite like Goldberg. So you would want to find ways to, first of all, when you're on the independent team, which everyone is now, you're just trying to find a way to make yourself stand out. That doesn't mean you try to ruin it for anyone else, but you want people going home going, who was that guy? So a case in point about making everything as important as it can be is that Rip Rogers, first of all, Wrestling 101, the first thing you should do is follow Rip Rogers on Twitter. It's like a wrestling lesson for free. It's like access to one of the most knowledgeable minds. It doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, but his ideas can be as simple as, hey, if you want your false finishes to mean anything in the main event, and why not have a couple people lose to those same false finishes in the match? Now, nobody wants to lose to a sunset flip or a backslide, but maybe if you're running an independent show, someone should take one for the team once a show and lose to a traditional finish that doesn't involve 5 spectacular finishes in a row. Why? Because then when the main event comes around and gets a better reaction than otherwise would have, that's a reflection of what you did in your match. And the promoters know that. So that's it. I mean, we've only got 15 minutes. I want you guys to ask questions. There's so much to learn, you know. I mean, it's easier now. These people talk about things, and I don't know if any of you listen to my podcast, but we're pretty open about, you know, the things I did that worked, but everyone's got a different method. Just a simple thing, when Tina was taking the picture, I suddenly remembered going to support my friend Dee Snider of Twisted Sister fame. Dee wrote a Christmas play. It was a heck of a play. And at the premiere, a bunch of his friends were there, including Clay Aiken, who we met on
American Idol.
not American Idol,
Clay Aiken.
yeah, he was on American Idol.
Yeah.
But they met on Apprentice. So my friend Jill, who was illustrated 4 of my books, said, Mick, I really like that photo with Clay. And we went to take the picture, and Clay went, make sure you hold the camera and make sure you get a high angle shot.
Right.
I said, why? Because you look much, much better that way. So believe it or not, this is something I picked up in the Santa world, is you never...
Yeah, but who taught that to you first?
That's
bullshit. I mean, look at it.
I'll put Aiken on the phone right now.
How long ago was it? I'll tell you if you knew me by then.
It was before 2012.
I've no.
2012.
I knew you before then. When did we meet? Oh, 2013 we met.
January 2013.
Oh, you even remember the day?
Hey,
The month?
full points for that.
Woohoo!
Bathtub Billy's.
Nope.
But
Was not Bathtub Billy's.
Daisy Dukes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, were you on the mechanical?
So when I was Santa, you learn that if you show up somewhere and they have a couch for you or an easy chair, as comfortable as it would be to lounge out, you don't want to do that because all people see in that photo is your hips and thighs. They call it the Santa swallowing chair. So as much as I'd like to lay back, when I was doing things with the kids, you get on the edge of that chair so that you project better and that all of you are seen. That's just that, it sounds like aesthetics, but I got hired basically on the strength of my promo photos because I had the foresight to actually pay for professional photos, to bring a curling bar with me and some baby oil. And I looked good to the point where when I made my debut in Memphis, Jeff Jarrett and Randy Hales, the booker, and a couple other guys were in a backstage meeting trying to determine if I was even the same guy who was in the photo. But those are just little things. Once I got there, I was able to prove myself. But the only way I got there in 1988 was by having promo photos that look good. Now people can watch your matches. So you want to make sure, and now you don't need a professional to do a video for you. But if you do want to spend the money, you make sure that you have a good video that's out there, highlight video, and also a good 10 to 12 minute match, because nobody's got the time to watch anything longer than 10 to 12 minutes. They just don't have
I
the
just wanted
patience.
to add in too. I was also told that if you're going to send something, to just send the meat and the potatoes, right? It's like bell to bell kind of thing, to cut out all the other like entrances and stuff like that.
Yeah. I would make just, unless you have some kind of great entrance, unless you have an entrance that you're proud
Because
of.
I know like sending to other promoters and stuff, they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, we only care about bell to bell.
That's
So
probably right. You would know more about what are people looking for than I would.
I'm constantly sending.
Yeah, you got to constantly send. And you want to try to show up and get your face seen. Not so often that you look like a nuisance, but often enough that people can place your face. So go ahead, I got time for...
That was actually going to be
handful.
one of my questions.
All right, go ahead.
It's kind of like how often to bug promoters, because sometimes they don't even open their
I'm gonna
inbox
give you an
because they get a
example.
lot of people.
All right,
you
I
know,
met
and
this
that's-
guy coming out of a Walgreens in the mountains of New Hampshire 2 years ago. The lady at the register follows me, goes, "Take acid, my ex-husband's in hospice. He's not doing good. Do you think you can give him a call?" I take that number, give him a call. The guy's doing fine. He's not dead. But he called me 3 times within 15 minutes to tell me he'd seen me on TV when I was spending time with my mom. And so the third time I answered it, and my answer was, "Dude, if someone doesn't answer the first 2, don't call. You know, leave them." So now that guy's got heat with me because he bugged me. And I'll probably text him and say, "Sorry, man, having a bad day." But the only reason I was having a bad day is because of him. But if that was a wrestler doing that, you'd be out of, God, I don't care how good he is. I don't want somebody battering me like that.
Right.
A couple times. A friend of mine, good friend, kept bothering the management team of a singer named Grace Potter to the point where I lost my connection with Grace Potter because I said, "Joe, how many times did you reach out to the manager?" And he goes, 12.
we were taught to be persistent, right?
But-
Go after what you want, be
but still,
persistent. But there's
One time and a follow-up.
Yeah.
And then the ball's in the court. So I would say you show up a couple times. You speak to who's ever there. When Sonia Deville was voted off Tough Enough, I'd never met her in my life, but I saw she was following me. I said, "Don't give up. I think you got a future." And she said, "What should I do?" I said, "The first thing you should do is contact everyone associated with the show, thank them for the opportunity, and say you would like to do more if there's ever a chance." That's exactly what happened. Not because I said it, but that is what happened. So that's how you do things. You don't want to become so persistent. All different things to do.
I'm not like, no,
Yeah.
it depends, you know what? It depends on the situation.
Yes. But this being
But
wrestling.
you knowing what you're talking about in wrestling,
All right.
absolutely. And
Next
I
question.
can see where that would be like that.
Who else got a comment, question? No need to be intimidated.
How many
Just 'cause
times?
I
He's kind of nice.
Just because I defeated The Rock twice. No need to be intimidated.
would send out your picks and stuff, how many times do you think you got no's before you got yeses?
I get it. Well, now when I broke in, there was only 5 full-time televisions.
Okay.
So I got no's from all of them. And my big break, I know the kayfabe sheets can be maligned, at least, back in the day. But I'll be darned if it wasn't one mention in the Wrestling Observer that had the same people who said no saying, when can you start? And then I was like, I can only work for one company. Literally 3 people called me in the same day. But I tried, and Natty Neidhart came across a handwritten letter I sent to her grandfather Stu back in 1986. And I sent the same letter to Randy Hales, sent the same letter to Portland, sent the same letter. There were 5 territories, so whoever was running, I sent it to. Another question?
Did you do crazy stuff like this in your backyard?
I know I didn't have the option
he
was.
did jump
tried.
off the house and go, whoa.
I did do that.
We all know that.
I saw that video.
I did do that.
I even saw that video. Can you believe it?
It's out there now. It's been out there for a while.
I know.
But once I got started in wrestling, Dominic DeNucci, who spoke kind of in parables, said like, my boy, if you want to do crazy things, you do that on your own. Here we learn the basics, and he explained how you can't write a proper sentence without knowing the words. You can't write a proper paragraph without knowing how to write a sentence. So we learned the basics over and over and over, and then it was a couple of years before I started trying to incorporate what might be known as risky stuff into the repertoire. But I was proud of the fact that I had a solid fundamental base. As time went by, it looked like I used it less and less, but it was always there as the base, so that I was confident that even if I walked out of the dressing room, didn't even see my opponent before I saw him, even if he spoke a different language, which did happen from time to time, that we weren't going to tear the house down. Right? It's really hard to tear the house down without some spots lined up, but it was going to be okay. It wasn't going to be an embarrassment.
I'm sorry, you jumped off a house onto what?
Onto some cardboard boxes.
And wasn't there a mattress?
Mattress.
There was a mattress on top of the cardboard.
Oh, it was on top. I thought it was
Yeah.
underneath.
I knew that
Not
was
supposed to
how.
know that.
I knew that's how stuntmen sometimes they broke their fall when they didn't have the budget for a crash pad. So I did. I wasn't being too reckless.
And P.S. The
Take
tacks
it easy, Belly.
were real.
They were real.
Those were
Oh.
barbed wire. That was
Hey,
Hell in the South,
what are you
fake.
doing?
Completely.
I have to bust it.
A few more questions? What?
Paul.
Right now.
Paul.
Heyman?
Yeah.
I first contacted Paul and I first got in touch in like 86. And he saw me work for
He's leaving in a
a
minute.
guy
They're
named
gonna
Tommy
take me
Fierro who ran shows out of Maine. He kept me in the back of his mind, and Paul wanted me to come up and work more regularly for that. The Savoldis was in there, Angelo's Savoldi, and he called me Bump Master. Yes, Bump Master. And then before I did my promo at Clash of the Champions, we were on 10, 9, 8, we're on live TV. He turns to me and goes, "Who would have thought two homeboys from New York, and now we're on national TV, and then we were live." So that was his way of putting me at ease before the most important promo I'd ever done. All right? In this business, there are going to be people who try to tear you down because they see you as competition, and people who do their best to build you up, even though they know that one day you might be competition. So that was something I said about the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, that really meant a lot to him after his dad passed. I said, for a while, after Dusty was my booker, you almost have to reduce them in your mind. I imagine NBA players have to do the same thing with LeBron James, because if you're idolizing them while they're on the court, you're not going to do very well with them. But it was only after, we stopped being competitors. When I say competitors, I was doing spots at wrestling shows and autograph sessions, but Dusty was still competition. But then you realize, wait a second, this guy helped me build a character that would then go on to compete with him. But he did it because he loved creating, and because it's the right thing to do. So if you have the choice between being somebody who builds people up and tears people down, I hope you would choose to be somebody who builds people up. All right, guys, getting dark.
Beard oil.
It is.
Beard oil.
Yeah, you want to try a little
Squeeze
beard
some. Yeah,
oil?
you gotta have his beard
Yeah.
oil.
I know the beard. Oh, you
is
got
fire.
it.
I got it right off the
You
bat.
got it right away.
Well,
You got
pizza
Foley
sense.
blend,
So-
come on up
Because-
here.
I've
Because
never
he
tried
likes
beard
your
oil in my
beard.
life.
Hands out, you're gonna love it.
Oh no,
good
you guys
stuff.
you have to buy. You sell it now, right?
I just
I know,
rub it
you
in.
need
It's at
to.
mythical,
Yeah, no,
mysticalbeards.com.
That's why I didn't realize how many
Mythicalbeards.com.
beards
Mythical
people
beard.
do.
I'm
And
great.
my feeling was I did enough manly stuff in my
Doesn't
career.
it smell so good?
I
Let me
don't
see.
want it to
Yeah,
smell
well,
like I'm in the middle of the woods.
Don't put it in my hand.
It's like mint.
I don't have a beard. Yeah, I don't have a
Well,
beard.
just take the dropper.
Oh my God, it smells.